Redditors who joined the military and regretted it. What made you regret it? I regret the last 6 years I was in. It cost me my marriage, my sanity, health, and all around sucked the joy out of life. The stupid game got really fucking stupid in those last 6 years. Truth is, if I had reclassed to a different MOs, I'm sure I would have been happier and would still be in. But no. I chose to stay in the infantry for 6 more years. Once I got out, I felt 125% better about myself and my life. I left after 7 years. The reason I regretted joining is that I never got to use the skills I trained for. It's the main reason I left. I'd see the same people getting cycled back onto deployment and I'd be stuck in a shore office dealing with paperwork at a desk. I didn't sign up to ride a desk. I signed up to be at sea. I was ready and available to go every time, and my name just never came up. But now I'm in a better job making more money with way less bullshit to deal with, so no worries. Almost everyone will regret it at some point, and since most joined between 17 to 22, it's assumed it's worse than civilian life, because there's not much outside experience to go off. Edit. Feel like I need to clarify. I don't regret serving either. I'm glad I did it. But I do believe that at some point almost everyone is fed up while they're in, and regrets not doing something else. That feeling probably changes, but it does happen. Been in 12 years now, and I feel like most people regret it, in some form or fashion during their time. That doesn't mean that you regret it all the time, but it certainly has its moments. Even guys with the cool jobs have regrets about things. I fly Apaches for the army, which is arguably the coolest job out there, but just like any job, shit sucks sometimes. My coworkers were assholes that would bully specific troops into being afraid to work because would get yelled at if they ever made mistakes. They were apprentices. They'll make mistakes. The shifts were long and irregular. Sometimes I would walk in at 7 in the morning for work, only to be told, "Oh, I meant to call you. You're moved to nights. Come back at midnight." People got placed on weekends for 5 or 6 months at a time, and only got pulled off so I could due process or deploy. People shame you for using vacation days and often deny you vacation time. It's a shit show. It's illegal for you to quit, and you're salaried and overtime exempt. There is zero incentive for them to not ride you like the indentured servant you actually are at that point. 100-hour weeks are not uncommon. Beyond that, the sheer amount of control over your life that they have, and more specifically all the incredibly stupid shit they choose to make a big deal out of instead of letting you do your job. The specific job itself was fine, but everything about the military and military life is fucked. It was the greatest concentration of the absolute worst people I've ever come across in my life. Don't get me wrong, there were some great people in the military as well, but the distribution of liars, cheaters, drunks, abusers, backstabbers, and bigots was so much denser than the average distribution in regular society that it got to be too much. Also, dear lord, the number of people who expected to be treated like a goddamn hero just for enlisting was nuts. Like, dude, you sit in a climate controlled lab all day in a butts in seats position. You haven't done a damn thing for your country. My friend said his colleagues were nasty and that I didn't want to know what they did to the women or how they treated them. He said a lot of women who joined who were good friends of his had experienced sexual assault while serving at some point. He said that being in the military did something to some of the men, made them desperate. Either that or they were always sick in the head. Basically they couldn't take no for an answer. They would harass the girls that said no or treat them like shit for it. They would also sometimes buddy up over it. There were other reasons he regretted joining, but that was the one that stuck out to me. He hated watching that happen to people. I pissed away 11 years of my life for some ideology that only exists on paper. Honor, courage, commitment has been replaced by paycheck, promotion, benefits. I did not serve my country. I served the egos of who had the most rank. We did not fight for freedom. We fought for Bush family profits. The idea of brotherhood doesn't exist. Yes, people of the same rank may have your back. The higher ups are only concerned with their own careers and will throw you under the bus in a heartbeat. I went in with the intention of doing 20 years. After being denied lap move 3 times and every opportunity I wanted based solely on my MOs, I kind of stopped caring. I only re-enlisted the last time because my wife was pregnant. I tried to kill myself a year later. I used to make video games before I joined. I was lucky enough to work on some amazing titles, almost all of the major Blizzard IPs amongst others. The truth is though, I wasn't fulfilled as a software engineer. I didn't like how it made me feel. The stress was ruining me emotionally, and I think that was all compounded by the relatively sedentary lifestyle. So I stopped making games, did a bunch of acid, and joined up to live a little. Despite what you might think, I'm actually really happy with my choice. I love the physicality, I love the people, and truly my work-life balance is way better. But stuff does happen that makes me regret it. Most recently we were on a training mission north of Barstow, chilling in a desert for a few weeks. Most people, myself included, packed for the heat. But you forget about the cold at nights. So here I am, underdressed, trying to sleep on top of my vehicle with the engine running for warmth. It's 19 degrees outside, with 70-mile-an-hour gusts, and a wind chill taking you well below zero. All I could think was, maybe sitting in an air-conditioned building, making video games and 4 times as much money wasn't so bad after all. I'm not in this situation, but it has happened to me, and I have seen it happen to a lot of others. Bad leadership has an astounding impact on service members. It is not like a civilian job where, if you have a bad boss you can quit and go somewhere else. For military that isn't an option. You are stuck with that person and they have the ability to negatively impact every facet of your life, much more so than a boss in the civilian world. One bad leader can take you from having a great military experience to it being a living hell. I'm going to cheat a little bit and say that joining the military was one of the best and worst decisions of my life. My experience was with the army. I think each branch has its quirks and some, Air Force, are better than others. That could be a grass is always greener thing, but I don't think so. The good things were that it opened up a lot of doors and allowed me to network and bond with cool and useful people from all walks of life. It kept me out of trouble, kept money in my pocket, gave me some direction and focus. I chose an MOs that is of good value outside of the military. My guess is the majority of people that regret joining didn't choose an MOs that was very useful on the outside. The bad is that every single douchebag who outranks you is essentially your boss. The pay is quite low for the same jobs out in the civilian world. The benefits aren't as good, in my opinion, but that might be debatable. I felt that low-ranking single soldiers were given the shitty end of the stick. People are heavily incentivized to get married before they're ready because you get way more freedom and money. It's easy to get taken advantage of in the military since there isn't an hour department to complain to. Ultimately I didn't regret it, but I regret putting myself in a situation where the military was my best bet. Joined right out of high school and was pigeonholed into a job I hated 2T2. All I got was a GI Bill, a nicotine addiction, and work skills in a field that is both hard to get into and doesn't pay well since it's so easy to do. Higher ups will tell you civilian life sucks compared to this, but honestly those guys have Stockholm syndrome. Sure, you don't get a guaranteed housing allowance or free healthcare from your job, but if your boss comes in drunk screaming at everyone, or the good old boy system comes into play at work, or your boss and coworker screw your career up, unlike the military, you can just leave. I regret it, because I wasted a few good years of my life for the government doing work I hated, and when I got out I essentially had to start from scratch. My advice is that, unless you know you're getting a job that you know you'll love, really weigh out your options.